Hello everyone and welcome to part 11 of my Pokemon DS hacking tutorials, where I'm finally going to show off how to do the Heart Gold Soul Silver Pokemon following Overworld Sprites that can't be done if you try to follow the steps from part 1. This was a limitation with the BTX Editor where it wasn't able to handle those sprites, I think, because they involved 2 palettes instead of 1, so it wasn't coded to do that. But before I get into that, I want to really thank the Discord for helping me out on this one as well, because holy cow, this one has gone through quite a few versions where we're trying to figure out how to do this. Originally, I was going to try to showcase a program called Tile Molester, which sounds like a program that's going to get this video on some kind of a list, where it still technically works and is great, but it's kind of complicated to use, and was later replaced by this easier method that we found that works a lot better. But if you're curious about Tile Molester at all, what you can do now in the DS Video Tools, there is now a folder called Ozone Tutorial Zone, where Discord member Ozone really put in a lot of work to try to make me a tutorial that I can follow to make the video for Tile Molester, putting in like a week of staying up really late at night, and I just felt bad that that method got dropped, so I'm going to put all of the finished tutorials in here as we go, where you can now view them if you want. Where the folder will include any extra tools that may be necessary. You can click this link to view a Google Doc of the written tutorial, which we will update as we go if we learn anything new and we need to add to it. So you can just click the link and view our most recent copy. Because Tile Molester is actually pretty cool, all things considered. It can do things like Super Nintendo sprites, and it's more versatile than the tools I usually show here, because they weren't made just for Pokemon games. So it might be worth your time to check out. But as for this video, get this on out of the way, I feel like I have to apologize to you guys, because in the end, the method that we found has existed for about 8 years now, and I just flat out missed it. I did not know that Kazawar made what is called the BTX Editor 2.0, which, when you open it, has a little box for shiny, and it works the exact same way as the one I showed off in part 1 of these video tutorials. But before you go, oh, I've already watched part 1, I know how to use BTX Editor, I'll just go over there now. Let me show you one trick first that is going to be really cool. Alright, close that down, go into Tink, and we're going to open up our Heart Gold Soul Silver ROM right here. Opens up the same way. Go A081 is the location of the overworld for the really confusing Heart Gold Soul Silver structure. And we can unpack it. And for my example, I'm going to work with the Pikachu Overworld Sprite, who is 323. Well, actually, I don't know how many ones are like this. He's 323, but he's also 322. Which you can't tell, but they made it so it's male and female, and the tail is just slightly different. There are 5 pixels different between these two. Okay, so before, what we had to do was extract the whole 1 folder from up here, then open it in Kiwi, make a new folder of all the BTX files. Yeah, you don't need to do that anymore. You just take this one, you can extract it, put it right on the desktop. Boom. Right there like that. Then you open up the editor. Open. Click the guy you just exported. It's right there. It's right there. You don't even need to extract them. You can use Tink to see which one you want to work with. It's so much simpler. I did also find out technically if you need to work with the older versions, you could do this as well, but you have to rename this to being just BTX. But this one you can do any Overworld sprite with, so really you just want to switch to this version of the editor. Oh, and I should mention, if you go to Kazuwar's forum where he posted this, you'll find that this version looks a little different. That's because when you look at the folder, each of the versions that I had up to this point had a sprite as an icon. And this one didn't have an icon at all. So I added one. So if Kazuwar ever watches this video, hope they don't yell at me. But I just did it as an aesthetic change that I thought, you know, helped it fit. Anyway. But when using it, all you need to do is the usual export for the sheet. And let's call this chew. Save. Right there. And then you check the shiny box. Oh, it's beautiful. Export again. Shiny chew. Perfect. Okay. So then you can open up a sprite and just view them. And you'll see pretty much like any NPC, there are 2 steps for each direction that you need to change. Alright, and as normal, I have some already made up. So we have the Overworld of Hat Chew, where I just ripped the hat off of the red sprite and put it on the Pikachu for an example here. So one here, and one also for the shiny. Perfect. And that works out great. Yeah, because as usual, you can do whatever you want as long as you limit yourself to 16 colors. 0 to 15. Alright, so then we come back over here. We do, well, uncheck it first. Import. And we will pick Hachu. It'll show up right there. Then you check the box. It'll get all weird, but then it'll be fixed by import Hachu shiny. And you can uncheck the box and see they both look okay. And then what's even cooler is if you go save, you can either do as I did before, which was make a new BTX file, but now with this version you can actually pick the original, save it, overwrite it, done. Alright. And you want to make sure this remains the same name with the same extension, BTX 0. So you can come back into Tink. And then just click on it. Change file. Find the one I just did. Here it is. Alright. You highlight it. View. And there we go. And just walk them on down through. And that one's good. Then you switch to the second palette here. And walk him through. He's good to go as well. And that's it. That's all you got to do. So this new version of BTX Editor 2.0 will cover the Heart Gold, Soul Silver follow sprites and also any other sprite as far as I understand, and should even avoid the issues I talked about in part 1 with like the Pokemon Center sprite or the watering can sprite. It seems like that one does export them in the right order. So I would say, in general, try to use this version now, which of course you can now get from the tools folder in the description of my videos. Right there. Now this method was so fast and so quick that I thought I would just show off a second program that was shown to me that can also edit Overworld sprites in case you ever need to have an alternative. So what we'll do is we're gonna close all this down, start fresh, get rid of this copy. Perfect. And we'll just reopen Tink. Go back to A081. Come all the way down to 323. Okay. And extract a new copy onto the desktop. Perfect. Okay, and the second program is called MKDS Course Modifier. Now you need to use the beta 11 version. There's another version that's actually also in this folder, inside the mentioned unused tool section. But that version doesn't seem to correctly work with the Overworld sprites. But that version doesn't seem to work well with the Overworld sprites, so you want to make sure to use this version right here. And you know you have the right version because the icon will be a red toad. Alright, so you can just open it up. Open a little window here. And you can just do File, Open. And we will go to our fresh BTX file. Okay, and you'll see this one kind of has it like Tink does, where each frame is split up. And it has the palettes down here. And while this does work equally as well, you do have to export each frame separately. So you would click here, export, put it on the desktop. Oh, Chew 2 shows up there. And this one, export, Shiny Chew 2 shows up there as well. Okay. So I'm going to close all these down quick. And it's just the one frame here. And what you'll see is that, one, my brush is huge. There we go. You'll see that he's in the 32 by 32 box I talked about in part 1. So this is just the sprite sheet split up into each 32 by 32 box. Alright, and as before, I have my extra copies. So here and here. Alright. Now there's one thing that BTX Editor does that MKS does not, and I'll demonstrate it here first. Because all I did here was take the hat and paste it on. All the other colors between the two should be pretty much the same. So you come back to the side. So you highlight the first one, and you want it to be the non-shiny palette. Then you import. And I'll pick the non-shiny hat chew right there. And then the same thing for the shiny. Okay, they look good on there as well. Now I should also mention that since these are separated, changing these images kind of ruins the other one, so you'll want to import all of them. And when you're done, they'll all look okay. It's just that you change these when you brought in these first two sprites. Okay, but if I just click save, doesn't look like anything happened, but it just automatically overwrote the original. So we come back into Tink, change file, we grab our guy here, highlight, view again, and there we go. So he's technically in the game, but you'll see if you look real close, the black border is missing. And the only reason I can think of why this happens is if you come into a sprite, this right here is actually a transparent, like, alpha channel, which just looks like a basic black color, but since this has transparency, this is what's representing that transparency. So if I was to remove that transparency by right-clicking this and making it background from layer, it turns solid black. So that means that the black color here matches what is considered the transparency, and it gets removed. So when you Control Z, undo that. So what we have to do is make these not black. Well, not basic black. And that should fix it. So what we'll do first is we're gonna select color range, and it's already set to basic black there, so it highlights just those pixels. That works out great. And now if you've watched the trainer case episode, which you may not have already, but I've learned that a Pokemon ROM can only display colors whose hex values these numbers here are divisible by 8. If they're not divisible by 8, it just ignores them completely. Now, some programs like the BTX Editor just convert these colors for you. If you're working with a more raw program like MKDS, you do want to be aware of this divisible by 8 limitation. Oh, you know what? I'm in the one that's for when I right-click and draw. I'm going to go to the left-click one. So what I have to do is raise this up by 8, like so. Okay. And since these are all highlighted, I'm going to click here. Brush is all big again. And I can just left-click and draw. And the only pixels changed are the ones that are highlighted. I don't know why the box disappears when I click and hold, so I just kind of click multiple times. Okay, cool. And then you can confirm this change by coming on in. Okay. And you can see that that's finding the 8 color. Okay. I'm going to save this one. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. This is still correctly changed. So select color range, basic black again, good. You know how that. You want to make sure that's not an 8 since they're so close together. So cool. All right. So hit OK. Then grab my pencil. Boom, 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 boom. And then unselect. Then click a different color. Click on that one. All right. So that's not basic black anymore. And we control save. Okay. So then is going to come back into MKDS and import a second time. These are the ones I just changed. So I'll pick that one. Second palette. That one. Save. So it's now on here. And come back into Tink. Change file. Grab our guy again. View. And now the border is there. Because it wasn't removed with that black. Don't know why it's there. But since you have to do all that, that's kind of why this is the alternative. Which is still leagues better than Overworld Sprite Editor. So I still wanted to mention it to you in case anything happens that BTX Editor 2.0 can't handle. And alright, that should be good. I mean, aside from making sure that you know that there are some Pokemon, which Pikachu is the only one I have found so far that has 2 of these. But you always want to be on the lookout for it. And then also, we've got ones like Lugia and Ho-Oh, who should be $5.79 for Lugia. There we go. And they are double the size, which I think also is part of why the original BTX Editor couldn't handle these guys, because they were so much larger. And they work the exact same way. So I could just as quickly extract this file, put it on the desktop, right there. Open up BTX Editor. And it'll show the larger file, like so. Alright. Also the shiny, which with Lugia you can't really tell what it's turning reddish. And I'm just going to show off a really cool sprite that Ozone made. Which should be Lugia Light. Basically the same one. But they then import. Made Shadow Lugia from Gale of Darkness as their shiny palette, which is really cool. So then we just save, overwrite. Yes. Change file. There we go. View. He looks the same. But that is very different. And look how cool that is. And look how quick that was. Ah, it's so good. So yeah. Like, that is now how quickly you can change Overworld sprites. As long as you can draw them and make them, you don't have to go through all the hullabaloo I showed in part 1. And I think you should be good to go from here. However, before you save the ROM with this button here, you want to scroll all the way back up. Oh, all the way back up. and highlight the one narc and click Pack. If you forget to click Pack, your changes will not show up in the ROM after you save it with this button. The general rule is always to click Pack after you have to unpack something. And alright, that should be it. So I wish you guys a good day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, everybody!